really one of these authentic influencers that Jason talked about, and a founder, media entrepreneur, who is addressing the needs of a new generation of discovery and consumption. And then, of course, Jason, who woke all of us up, but also, I think, has sincerely scared every single news publisher in this room. I don't know if that was your intent, but I think it's a good kind of fear, because hopefully it will drive and incentivize us to think about content creation and our audience in a different way. So, Norma, I know you just ran on stage, but I apologize, but I'm going to throw the first question at you. Because I want to ask if you agree with this world that Jason just painted, what the next generation, the Gen Z consumer, looks like. Do you agree generally with that assessment? Is there anything else that you want to add or you want to argue and debate with him on?
Well, no, I think I really agree with Jason that influencers is something that we have to pay attention to. I mean, I myself, when we first started back in 2012, what really got the attention that BrandHK has now, it really started on Facebook. It started on YouTube. I mean, now in China, of course, we are all on all of the video and social media platforms. I think something to add maybe like, in terms of young consumers nowadays, what is kind of like the misperception of young consumers, I think, is their loyalty. A lot of people say that now young consumers, they're more fickle, they're less loyal, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I only think that they are much more open-minded. They like to try new things. They are more open and receptive to new ideas. I mean, for us, we've come from a media brand to now a platform that we also sell products to a consumer brand in China. I think it actually presents a lot of opportunity for us because now the younger consumer, they like new things. They're more receptive to new brands. It actually opened up a lot of doors to us.
Excellent. Now, I want to ask Elena this. Jason said that we live in a world now that requires premium content, plus Gen Z, next generation distribution, and plus influencers. Those three things, of those three things, only one is a core competency of the news publishing world. That's premium content. Gen Z distribution, we're scared of, not only because generally we don't understand it, but also because our experience so far has been when we have taken our content and put it out there through Gen Z distribution or any next-gen distribution, we've lost control of our relationship with our consumers. We've lost the ability to monetize. And now we're trying to actually pull back. And then influencers, in our minds, these kinds of influencers are not necessarily gatekeepers of truth that is such a strong conviction as the backbone of our entire industry. So from your point of view, as a news executive, how scared are you if this is the reality? Premium content plus Gen Z distribution plus influencer.
So I'm not scared about this, and actually it's a great question, but I think we can spend an entire session on this because what I love about Jason's presentation, I mean, thank God MC Hammer. I mean, that's what I learned about your presentation as well, is that he gave us a history of the media landscape, but he's also giving us a history of the consumer behavior. CNN, it was once the disruptor, the only game in town that people talked about, like the Vices of the world. But we're 40 years old next year. I don't think we can call ourselves, the modern day disruptor. But we have gone on the journey that Jason has actually talked about. At times we've done it well. At times we have had setbacks. And I would say now we are back at our game. With CNN, we used to be quite, I mean, this is like hopefully close to our session, but, we used to be very, we used to feel like we were the game in town, the only game in town. We felt it was very important that we kept everything for ourselves, our own platforms, and we didn't share it. Now we have partnerships, over 38 partnerships around the world, and they're all digital partnerships. I mean, plus more. But, all the platforms that Jason mentioned, whether it's, Snap, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, I'm the Instagram generation, despite the year that I was born, so I'm glad that I'm not in the Facebook generation. But we have these partnerships. What we are learning from that, yes, sometimes we have content that we realize it's maybe in the beginning not so successful because you realize all these platforms, you have to be authentic to that platform. We can't just say, we're CNN, We're creating content, and we just want you to take it. So, I think what Jason paints, it doesn't scare me. It's an opportunity. And the fact is, in this modern day where consolidation is taking place, if you don't take advantage of it, you don't have teams who's going to engage in it versus being scared, I think you're going to fail as a media organization. And I feel comfortable and I feel very excited about the fact what we're doing now is we're constantly engaging with these different partners. The one point you did mention, I think it is very important for all the publishers, though, is that we're sitting on exceptional premium content that is backed up by truth. It's backed up by a series of standards and practices that you can be confident that we've done all the fact checking. Do we want to give that to someone else to take control? The economics is a debate, right? And I think, as you mentioned, we're trying to bring it back into our control, and that's going to be a major, I think there's going to be a lot of transition taking place in the next couple of years on that and taking control.
And we'll come back to the news content side of this, but I want to ask Jason a quick question. A follow-up question to your presentation. You kept mentioning authentic and cool, authentic and cool. Does that work with news?
I think Vice is a very good example of that. People see Vice as cool. They also see it as the voice of the new generation. It's young people on the ground in Syria, in places Taliban controlled, with their cell phones, with a small camera set, getting news before traditional publishers, right? But it's coming from them directly. It doesn't look polished. So when I say cool, it doesn't mean you have to look cool or dress cool. Cool is about authenticity. It's about truth. And it's being authentic with your brand and your audience, right? So people that like Vice are expecting, my friend Izzy, when she, recently, well, I shouldn't mention it because we're in Hong Kong, so, but she was here at the Yellow Umbrella, on the ground as a young person, as a millennial, right, with a team, shooting, and her audience sees a young person, a young journalist that looks like them, that dresses like them, that talks like them, that thinks like them, that values like them, giving them the information that they want to know about from that brand. And so what I mean by cool is that it's being true to who you are as a brand and your narrative and your ethos, and doing it in a way that is not selling out just because everyone else is doing it.
I would say that, you can do news and you can be cool, but there are different platforms. He mentioned the Dennis Rodman situation. So we were in parallel at the same time. Vice was in there, creating content the way it created it. We were in there, the only media organization from the old traditional organization that was there, and we were telling our story in our way. Did that mean that we were less credible? Frankly, we're probably more credible in many ways, considering our access and our distribution reach. But there is room for all of this to exist, and I think it's not either or. And I think it's what's really important. I think the biggest misconception people have is that because you're young, you just want cool stuff. It's not. If it's not backed up by truth, it's not backed up with authenticity, then it will not have legs to stand on. I don't find my critics, the adults, to be my biggest critics. I find my critics to be the real of this generation who will catch you out, they will talk about you, they will shame you, and they will let you know when you're not doing something right.
So, Norma, I want to ask, how do you build that kind of authentic voice to a brand? Because that's what you guys have done with the Day Cook brand. Was it an evolution, or from the beginning, did you know exactly what authenticity looked like, what it sounded like?
No, it kind of adding to Jason's point, I think authenticity is about being yourself, and then we're definitely not cool, but we're more wholesome, right? I think we just kind of believe in, our first reason why we started Day Cook. We wanted to encourage young people to like cooking again. So kind of stick with that mission and kind of stay true to that along, the years that we create different types of content. The kind of content that we started out with on Facebook and YouTube is very different from the content that we do now on TikTok, right? But we still stay true to that one mission about, encouraging young people to like cooking. So I think authenticity is about having a mission and really staying true to that.
Mm. Should put yourself in the shoes of news publishers in this room. Should we be mimicking a lot of things that we see out there that is being created by UGC, by Gen Z, by influencers?
I don't think mimic is a good way to do it, because audience are so smart nowadays. They know you're faking it, and once you're faking it, you're no longer authentic.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Jason, what do we do then? What do the news organizations here who have always created content in a relatively specific way that are trying, because we care, obviously, that the young generations understand the truth about the world, are trying to engage those generations? How should we think about content creation?
I'll give just one basic fact, is that, as you saw in the stats, Gen Z, Gen Y are consuming content and news through video, social media, more than print, more than text. Something to really think about. I'm launching my next media company, and it's a big conversation between me and my founders and my team. How much text do we do versus video? Okay?
Yeah.
Because really, we also know text doesn't monetize too well. Okay? Doesn't get that much impact anymore. But video is what drives stories and what drives connection with the current generation. And so if I was a 40-year-old, 30-year-old, 20-year-old, 10-year-old news organization and publisher, I would think about how do we become video first. I think that's super important. And if you can crack video in your mission, with your mission, and stay on track and be authentic to that mission in video, whether short form, mid form, or long form, I think that's where you need to put your focus versus everything else.
Now here's the difficulty though, because you say that text does not monetize well, but the reality is that digital video today, for news organizations, also does not monetize well. All of these news brands that you're talking about that are authentic, whether it is Vox or Vice or BuzzFeed or Huffington Post, have valuation issues right now. Because digital monetization, whether it is text or actually even worse, video, right, does not match the cost of quality content creation. So I want to throw it to Elena and ask, like, how do you, as CNN, deal with that issue?
I think Gary, you and I are in the same boat in many ways. We're grappling with the same issues. But the debate that Jason is having in his office is the exact same debate I'm having in our editorial rooms as well. We're always figuring out the ratio between digital and video and text. What we found out, actually, and I say this because I'm actually in the midst of creating a sponsor features content team with the skill sets that's multi-platform. And the fact is, even for a video to be successful, each video we need to accompany by 3 different texts. Now, it doesn't have to be 800 words as in the old days, but to have it just live alone, in order to make it really truly successful, we figure out the ratios between 1 to 3. So the misconception that the younger generation, they only want to watch, they don't want to read, they don't have the capacity to read, I really challenge that. Yes, your video has to be very good. The debate that we're having is the kind of video that we make, is that consumptionable for the different demographic, right? The video you create for television, you can't dump it on digital. But Gary's also right. You know, we've moved away from, we used to call it digital pennies. We're not in the digital penny stage yet, but it's still not at the level that brings in the type of cash that we're talking about with the old media. So for an organization like us, or the organization like Gary's, I guess, is how do you coexist, but make it very authentic? Don't disrespect your consumer by dumping things on each other, thinking that they will all be fine, and then you try to monetize it.
Now, CNN is fortunate insofar as difficult as it is to take a traditional video discipline and transform it into a digital video discipline. At least there is video discipline and expertise to begin with. Many of the news organizations, especially the traditional newspapers, do not have any of that discipline today. So we're actually more like how BrandHK started, where we don't understand video. We don't know how to build it properly. We don't know how to do it cheaply because we can't invest huge sums of money without proving out the business model. So Norma, can you tell us, how do we start? How do we build and test video as an organization that historically has never done it before? How did you guys do it at BrandHK?
I mean, when we first started, I literally just started with a tripod and a very small camera in our studio. I mean, it was a one-man band in the beginning. I mean, nowadays, the cost of creating content is gone down tremendously. And I think we have to really think about what is the definition of quality video, right? We used to think that, high production is a quality video. But nowadays, I mean, consumers are consuming tons of digital content on their handphone within matters of 30 seconds or 90 seconds clips. So high production quality doesn't pay off anymore. So for example, for us, I mean, we gained a lot of fan base on TikTok over the matter of 6 months' time, just having a small team of 3 people. And most of the time, they actually shoot videos using their phones. They don't even get cameras. So I think it's a matter of really just trying it out and really understanding the platform that you're going after. Because if you create content for TikTok, it's very different from creating content for YouTube or even Netflix.
And what was the success to you growing an audience base on TikTok so quickly?
Well, I think once again, it goes back to keeping it real. I mean, the content that we created for TikTok, it was so mindless. The more mindless, the more relatable they are to the audience on TikTok, the faster you gain your fan base.
So again, for news publishers, like that doesn't, like we can't calculate that. We don't understand what that means, right?
I think the conversation actually goes back to once you have the fan base on TikTok that you actually gain from creating mindless content, how do you monetize it, right? So I think for us, I mean, we are still a startup and we continue to go through fundraising stage. So having this valuation discussion with investors is always a key point for us. I mean, for Daily Cook, I think if we were to stay as a true media company, we definitely wouldn't have been able to fundraise after, like, I would say, A round or even B round. But because we are able to create a brand through consistency in our content, now we're able to actually create consumer products. So for example, now we're actually monetizing through selling products through our content. So for example, last weekend, we did a live stream section on Kuaishou, which is like the rivalry for TikTok. 4-hour session, we sold $2 million worth of products, all private label products. So I think that's the way that we monetize now, going beyond just, advertising and media.
Jason, have you seen news organizations do stuff like this well, create content for a very, very new distribution, for a very new audience, and be able to actually eventually build a business out of it?
Yeah, actually, when I started 88 Rising with my co-founder, we were debating on whether we should have a website. We were debating whether we should have text. We decided at the very end to get rid of text and to get rid of the website and just go video. We're now multi-million subscribers, multi-billion views, but one of the companies that we looked at was Now This. And so if you look at Now This News, is only less than 5 years old, billions of views. Originally, they had no website for the first almost 4 years, right? And literally, you would just go to Now This, and then you would just see a video, the video of the day, or the videos that they wanted to showcase based on news through millennials, right? And so if you look at how that following and that brand's narrative is, they're video first, they're millennial, Gen Z driven, they are a news organization, but they're completely mobile. It's not PC, it's not television, it is all right here shared on Facebook, Snap, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And I look at that and I still believe that is where it's going. I believe it's going to go more and more towards video first. I'm just a high convicted proponent of video, and that I believe in text as well. And I believe that there is definitely there is a necessity for editorial text at a high quality. But I think the more I see kids at 12, 10, 15, 17, 21, even 25, how they're consuming content. You go to China right now, it's the craziest thing. When you talk about the word mindless, all right, I'll be with people that are executives of major companies and corporations just sitting there at 8 o'clock, just scrolling for 2 hours on Douyin with just mindless content, right? Now, how do you actually engage that, and how do you actually create content for that? For us at 88, we said, okay, with Douyin, we're music-driven. We're music artist-driven, influencers and premium content. If you look at 80 Rising, what were we known for? Why did we blow up? Was because, one, our talent was authentic and really talented, number one. Number two, our content, the production quality was bar none. People would say it's the best. It was premium. We took that, cut it into 15 seconds. We put this song with Higher Brothers called Loverboy onto Douyin. It got over 1 billion plus views in less than 2 weeks, with something like 100 million plus shares of others doing their versions of the song, right? That's the power of figuring out your brand with these platforms and doing it that's more, I would say, applied and localized to that narrative or that platform.
TikTok is such a fascinating platform. It really is. It's addictive when you use it. Within minutes of using it, doesn't matter how how foreign that Gen Z consumer might seem to you, the moment you start using TikTok, you start to understand them better. But it is also a platform where news organizations just have no success. And it really is because we can't jive the news, quality news, and the context and the depth of what quality truth looks like does not jive with a platform as you describe it, with a mindless platform, entertainment platform as you describe it. So I want to ask CNN, Elena, because CNN has been successful transforming quality news for traditional channels of distribution into new channels of distribution. Have you guys tried TikTok?
No, we're not on TikTok, and maybe we're really conservative, and we're aggressively pursuing partnerships with other digital platforms. But I'd be honest, a lot of it has predominantly been in the Western Hemisphere. It hasn't been as much as in this part of the world, and this is where I think Jason's presentation is really eye-opening and something that we definitely need to pursue. But maybe I'm a bit old school, but I'm not of the mind that it's an either-or world. We have people that I haven't even met, part of CNN, who specifically works on the content in our relationship with, like, say, Snap. Because we understand we can't get that content from the traditional newsroom organization. I think we went through a phase where we thought, you're a TV producer, so why don't you just go create some digital videos? And why don't you put that on? It didn't really work. We were disrespectful to the platform. We are now more than respectful of the platform. We've studied it. We've engaged with it. Through trial and error, we know what works, what doesn't work. We actually created a whole new subsection that's separate from the company, and it's called GBS. It has no CNN brand related to it. It's exactly what Jason talks about, no text, all video. And it's for a different demographic. But in order to do that, we had to create a different unit. They're not even part of Hudson Yards in New York City. They're downtown where you're cool, right? So, I think these are the experiments you have to do. And luckily, we are so confident in the type of quality of content that we have. Because at the end of the day, we recognize content is king. You have to own your content, you have to know your content, and you have to be authentic about it. And so with that, we're just figuring out the distribution platforms.
Okay, so let's put a pin in TikTok and say that I think most people in this room ought to understand TikTok, and at the very least, as a news industry, at the very least, we should have that discussion at some point about what TikTok as a distribution channel might mean for news in the future. Let's take a step back, right? Step away from that real cutting edge, well, TikTok's not even really cutting edge, but that platform that we don't yet understand, to one that many of us have experimented on, but may have failed on, which is Instagram. I want to ask Norma, what is a good Instagram video? What do we not know about the platform? What should we know about the platform so that we can create content that is authentic to that distribution channel, to the audience and the expectations on that channel?
I don't think we are Instagram expert because Dateco only has under 200,000 followers on it.
That sounds large to most of us.
No, it hasn't reached their millions yet. We've tested Instagram on a number of different formats and stuff like that. Interestingly, for our food post, we only do recipes. Pictures and text actually works better on Instagram for our engagement. Because we create a lot of, every single recipe, we have the video format and we have the text and photo format. But on Instagram, for some reason, we cut these 10 seconds versions and we post it. And then for the next day, we share the same recipe in text and photo format. It actually engaged better. So that's how it is for us. Okay.
Have you seen anything different, or do you agree with that, Jason, on Instagram?
I generally agree. I actually think what you've done at SCMP has been very engaging. And I say that because I've been following the protests through SCMP, through mainly your story sharing, right? So I think when they launched stories, 24 months ago, that originally it was, mainly picture posts, but immediately within less than 18 months, there are more posts on stories, astronomically more than per post on the main Instagram feed. And so what I do believe, and I agree with Norma, is that when it comes to the actual post on Instagram, the actual picture and text actually performs better because people look at Instagram as like a photo book, right? It's like a photo, that's what it is. It's a photo gallery. It's a photo album. But if you engage on stories, that's a whole nother way of engaging. And I think you guys have done a very good job of that, of cutting up short 10-second splices of videos, pictures on that story, telling a narrative. That's actually where I engage most of my news now, right? So I'll actually go and search SCMP or CNN and find out what's on their story and what's happening, right? And then I'll find out what's going on, and then as well on other platforms like Facebook. Not as much on TikTok yet. Like I said, I think TikTok is still very tween, mindless social videos, but I think it's a platform. People always ask me a question, do you think Jeffrey Katzenberg's Quibi is going to work? Do you think, this thing is going to work, whether it's 10 minutes or 60 minutes or 30 minutes? And to me, it goes back to what she said, content is king, right? So people like I'm talking to in China this whole last week, they're like, oh, there's this rip-off show of 24 called 12 on Youku, okay?
That's a real thing?
It's a real thing.
Okay.
And they will pay 20 renminbi just to watch that show. And when that show is done, they will hear about this iQIYI show that has some girl band, whatever's going on, and then they cut that off and they pay for that, right? So my point is, the platform doesn't really matter. It's the content and
Absolutely.
how that content is being delivered.
So that's, I totally agree. I was going to mention that as well. I've, during these last 20 weeks, I've been not only reading you, but I've actually watching you. And the work that SCMP has done in the last couple of weeks. I think there's been great quality journalism being done through what you've done. So I think you actually know more about the video than you actually are saying right now, because I follow it through Instagram, and that takes me to a different type of, it takes tangentially to other parts of the news. I would say regarding to influencers, look, we all know influencers are important, right? The video I showed you, that had a series of influencers, but not probably the modern day millennial influencers. When we started the Features Instagram page, we had Kong Yu, who's like, I'm not sure if many of you know, but he's part of the whole Korean Hallyu situation. He's one of the most famous actors. Literally in 10 minutes, I think we got 3,000. So influencers are important. My question to Jason in some ways is though, we believe in influencers. I'll go buy something because an influencer will wear it or market it. But now it's getting to the question of what's behind it. Because if you think about the brands are also influencers. When you walk into a New York Times what you're getting. When you're walking to a CNN. When I had an influencer, I know what I'm walking into. But now there's some kind of a grayness that's happening where there's transactional things are happening. And I don't know if the next generation who really strive for authenticity, strive for the truth, are they going to still be influenced in knowing that influencer has different economic deals going on?
I would just say influence doesn't have to be a person. It can also be a brand.
Yep.
Right? And so, for instance, just what Norma shared, Dated Cook, they sold 2 million USD. Congratulations. That's amazing. And what, an hour?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Be modest.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
No.
Okay. So first of all, you have an audience. You have an authentic brand, DDC. They've been consuming your content for X amount of years. They trust you. They know you, right? So the moment you recommend a brand or a product, immediate sell-through, right? Similar with 88, we did a collaboration with Guess Jeans this last year 2 times. And we sold, I wouldn't say at the same amount, but close, in a matter of 20 minutes. We shut down the Hypebeast, HBX.com e-commerce site because we had the influence, we had a recognized brand, or 2 recognized brands, sold through a video, right? And the moment it went online, boom, it was out, right? And so I do think if you look at Fenty, Rihanna, you look at Honest Company, Jessica Alba, you look at George Clooney, Casamigos, these brand guys are smart, right?
Right.
Because you look at, tequila, George Clooney, I believe it, I'll drink it, right? And so I think in that sense, it's about telling your narrative right, being authentic about it, and this is a expression of your narrative and your authenticity, whether it's water. I was just with Jaden Smith in Beijing, and he's been pushing this thing called Just Water that's made out of paper bottles versus plastic for 5 years, and it's only been, I would say, the last 9 months, everywhere I go in LA, I see just water, just water, just water, just water. I think his fan base has followed him and his narrative on social media, where he's helping the homeless, he's giving back, he's doing all these charitable and mission-driven, giving himself to these causes, that brand, Just Water, is authentic to Jaden Smith. And it's believable, therefore, they'll buy it, they'll consume it, and they'll take it.
Okay, so for, again, the people in the room, the news publishers, table stakes, it sounds like we need to learn how to work with influencers in a way that is authentic to news, in the way that helps us distribute truth and information to a different generation of consumers. But at the same time, news organizations increasingly, I think, are trying to become influencers, whether it is that we're building up brands to be of influence in that way, or personalities within our news organizations to become influenced, because oftentimes with video, you need the people in front of the camera, you need the voice, you need the tone. Mm-hmm. So, Norma, are you just born with it? Or like, how do you build and become and create an influencer persona? We as companies, how do we do that with either our brand or with people within our organization?
First of all, I think you're going to be a great influencer.
I sure as heck hope that
I think you should really try it.
I
think you'll be a natural, but I was not a natural, and I still suck at it. I still hate shooting videos. I think I'm better when I shoot the videos myself. But when I do, like, I also have TV shows in Hong Kong. But when I do TV shows with the big cameras, I definitely get very nervous still. But you know what? I get the encouragement when I post the videos and people like it. I think that's where the drive comes from.
And you are sincerely, and I know you well enough to know that what we see on camera is you. Was that a process to feel comfortable enough to really be genuinely you in front of camera, or did you at one point have a bunch of videos that you were trying to act up what you think the audience wanted, and then you decided, let me come back to me? Was that a process, or from the very beginning it was just, we landed on authenticity and it worked?
I think I just started just being myself, because I was never trained to be professionally, being on camera. So what you see is what you get. Yeah.
Okay. Elena, same question to you. I mean, CNN, as you said, has for 40 years now been able to create influencers, news influencers, these personalities and names that we all know and we trust. How do you do it, and what do you think? How are you creating these new personalities for new generations of consumers?
Yeah, I think it's what's your starting point. Our starting point wasn't to become an influencer. Our starting point was Ted basically got really upset that he would have to wait till 6 or 6:30 in the evening in the United States and watch news. And it was a consumption behavior. He was like, why do I have to wait until 6:30? I want to get my news whenever I want it. So instead of you pushing it out to me, I'll just turn you on when I want to turn you on. So it just started from understanding just what is easy for us, and through course of time, we built our influence. I think, you will fail if you just want to build influence. It's like you will fail if you just want to make money. Money is a byproduct. I will tell you, truth is a very powerful currency. It is a very profitable currency, just the way Jason was talking about culture currency. So I think you do build it up, but I would say 40 years, what you do have is you have a responsibility. You start to realize that you have a position of influence which you cannot ignore, which carries a really heavy burden. And this is what's hard. This is what's hard because you've got everyone with a camera or phone is saying, I'm a journalist, I stand for truth, and I don't need you. But it's really not the case, right? So it does make our work hard, but I don't think we start with the fact that we want to influence. I think we start with the fact that we are constantly trying to hone our skill. And a lot of that is making sure we don't make mistakes, and if we do, confess to it.
Jason, is there a happy medium between entertainment and truth?
Absolutely. I believe that you're never called to chase hype. We're called as journalists or media companies to chase truth. And However that is expressed, of course, is subjective. But I think at the end of the day, whether truth comes in 10 seconds or truth comes in 1 hour or 10 minutes, it doesn't matter. Our job is to honestly express truth.
Yeah, and also news can be fun. I mean, I don't know about you, and I know maybe some people are bored with Trump, but I mean, there's enough drama in that. You know, I wake up and there's enough drama in politics, but also with news is beyond politics, which is why, you know, Gary said, what kind of video do you want to show? I could have showed you all kinds of video, right? I could have showed you a video that we're in Iraq. But I wanted to show you that video to show you that the definition of news is beyond politics and beyond economics. It's in lifestyle. It's, you know, the brilliant work she's doing right now with her platform. It works because she's authentic, right? And so I just wanted to show that news is beyond just politics. And it's our mission to go find out the value of it and to bring it to the audiences who are interested in those different areas.
I'm going to end on a question about prediction for all three of you. Same question. What is another disruption that's coming to the media landscape that news publishers just cannot afford to misunderstand or completely miss? I want to start with Norma and ask your thoughts on that. What is a disruption that we need to know about that it would be detrimental for us to miss?
I kept thinking about this question this morning. I think, like, for us, we have some paid content in Day Day Cook, and which is still, you know, more premium, and it's professional chefs teaching you how to cook, but it's still pre-recorded. So I'm thinking maybe what's next for us is something that incorporates AI and virtual reality, where, you know, you can actually have a Michelin chef that actually engages with you in real time and teaches you how to cook something. So I think that's something that's disruptive for us in our vertical.
Jason?
Data. I think the ability to understand data, to learn data, and to make decisions on what type of content and news that you're going to create through that data. I think Netflix is already doing that, but I do think machine learning and AI is going to be the future of how we actually consume, analyze, and output.
Elena?
So, look, if I knew, I wouldn't be sitting on the stage. I'd be making lots of money on this. So I don't have the perfect answer, but I would say, like, in the world that we're dealing with, we are actually living in a disruptive age. I would like to somehow figure out how this can be a lot more, how it can all be connected. We have separate AI conversations, we have a data conversation, we have AR conversations, and then we've got the 5G rolling on, which I'm trying to even get my wrap around my head. But the disruption is going to be reflected on how I, as a consumer, whether that's a news consumption or even as I think a lot about travel, for instance, because as you know, we travel a lot. I would love a world where all of this disruption, I will start to see some kind of smoothness or synchronicity in all this. For example, how does 5G work with AR, which work with IR, all these different new things that are coming on the horizon, how it's going to improve my life, daily life as a consumer. So I'm just trying to see how that's going to come together in many ways instead of making a prediction on the future. But I think we should ask you as well. What do you think as a disruption? Because,
Nice
you know,
one.
Well, that doesn't seem fair.
I think, you know, you're, you know.
Can I just say I agree with all of you guys? I'll rephrase it a little bit for my own answer because I get to do that. I think the reason why the presentation, Jason's presentation in this panel, ought to scare everyone in this room is really two things. The first is that we must recognize the gap between generations, the differences in how even half generations discover and consume and what their expectations are, is getting larger and larger. The fact that even though technically I'm a millennial, I consume and discover in a completely different way than somebody that is 10 years, just 10 years younger than me, should really, really scare us because that gap and that difference is only accelerating, it's not decelerating. The second reason why we should be scared is that, as Norma put it, the cost of quality content creation is extremely low. And as news organizations, our competition for mindshare, for time on screen, is extremely high. We are competing against incredible content by incredible creators. And we're now talking about not local news organizations that we're competing with, not even regional news organizations. We're talking about tens, if not hundreds of millions of creators every single day in our parts of the world. And so the differences are getting larger, and we have to speed up to understand these differences that are growing. And our competition is no longer just one another. And it's not even the networks that we constantly talk about, but it's all the other content creators that are creating incredible things like what you saw on the screen before. And now we have to win mind share away from that. So I also don't have the answer, but at the very least, I think that if news organizations in this room recognize those two things, at the very least, we will be able to start finding solutions to the problems. So ladies and gentlemen, can you please join me in thanking our incredible panel for an awesome opening session. Thank you guys so much.
I think they want a picture.
I'd like to thank